Hey, how's it going? So today on BKRsport, we are back for In the Sheds week number 3. I'm very keen for this episode because we've actually got someone here who has actually helped me out quite a lot with my channel when I've been doing vlogging at games. This is actually our first special guest of the show, of In the Sheds, and I tell you what, look, there's no better way to start right now. There is no better way to start. First up, obviously, though, guys, you guys are very well aware of Luke Shirls and Entertain House. Hayden, how you guys going?
Yeah, good. How are you?
I'm all right, boys. I'm really pumped for today's episode because I feel like it's gonna be really interesting. We've got a player here who, he's phenomenal in his field, and he's got plenty of experience. So it's gonna be a really good chat. You guys keen?
Both on and off the field, Jesse's a great asset. So
Yeah,
looking forward to having a chat with him.
And he's played for the Tigers as well, so...
Well, briefly. So we've got, obviously today's guest is an Australian National Rugby Sevens player. He's played 50 caps. That is a lot of experience. That is a lot of tournaments. If you guys know anything about the Sevens, the 50 tournaments for 50 caps is just an incredible feat. He hit that in Sydney. We actually vlogged that, so go and check that out. Go and check out that vlog as well. He's scored over 35 tries as a forward. He's a barnstorming forward, son. He's played for the West Tigers briefly. He's played in the Brumbies. Along with this, outside of the game, he has Sense Rugby, which is an occupational therapy program which assists in basically disabled children being able to join the sporting community and getting involved, which is an amazing thing, and we're definitely going to be talking a lot more about that. Obviously, guys, I'm speaking about the big man, Jesse Parahi. Welcome, Jesse, everyone.
Thanks,
awesome, man. I'm really keen to get chatting about the Sevens here, mate. How are you coping with everything going on right now?
Yeah, look, mate, just like everyone else, it's been a tough time. A lot of change. Routines have just been thrown out the window, and we're trying to get as much done while we're at home as much as possible. I've been running pretty much every day and trying to get in the backyard for a gym session. But aside from that, yeah, just taking it one day at a time, and we're sort of finding out things as we go.
Man, it must be so hard for a player. Like, obviously, you're like, it's different. Like, it's a little bit different with Sevens because the style of tournaments you have and the style of the system, like, which goes like a month and then 2 tournaments in a week and then a month and then 2 tournaments in a week. It still must be incredibly frustrating where you can't get out to the gym like you normally would, and you can't go to the training fields with all the boys with what's going on.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what we're used to. Day in, day out, we're surrounded by our mates, and it is tough to go into isolation like everyone in Australia and around the world at the moment. I think we're getting a bit of a glimpse as to what people do when they work from home, and it's a little bit of a tough thing to do. I've tried my best to stay active and stay engaged with the boys that I'm playing with and my mates outside of rugby, but it's tough. It's a really hard time for everyone involved. And
How do you adapt physically? Like, if you have a strength and conditioning team, how do you kind of adapt to training? Obviously, the loads and the fatigue is going to be a lot different while you're in isolation. Is there kind of a plan going on there, or how does that exactly work?
No, so at the moment we're on annual leave. So essentially, if we don't want to, we don't have to train right now. But I think just for my mental health and making sure I stay ahead and try and keep as fit as I can, I've just been doing off my own bat, a little bit of running, a little bit of gym stuff, and mainly just to keep the body ticking over. I am 30 years old.
Still young, mate. 30 years old. You've got a few years left in you, son.
You're not old.
Nah, it's not super old, but it's enough to, when I played, for so long, 10 years in Sevens sort of thing, it does hurt the body when I actually take time off. So it's easier for me to keep going than to stop and then get going again. So for me, I'm just
on that quickly as well. Like, obviously, you don't have to go out and train. You don't have to go out and keep fit. But in reality, we don't know how long this could happen. It could come back in 2 months' time, and then you're forced back into the system. You're forced back into playing the Fijians, who we obviously know are a big body physical team, and you got to keep your body ready for that. So it just shows the professionalism when you're still focusing on keeping your body active and fit despite our limitations right now.
Yeah, well, I think Sevens as a game has become so much more professional since I started 10 years ago. Right now, I know for a fact that every single one of those guys that we play against is out there training. They'll be in their backyards or their home gyms or, going out for runs, and they'll be doing the exact same thing. So for us to, even just to keep up, we need to be doing that and more.
Do you have a home gym, Jesse? A lot of athletes at the moment have got the home gym that they're rocking. Are you rocking the home gym and keeping up with the fitness that way? You said you were going for runs and stuff, but what about in the home, the isolation itself?
Well, I actually was digging under my house the other day, and I uncovered a whole heap of weights. So I've got about 180 kilos of weights and a barbell.
Not enough, mate. Not enough.
Huge. Oh, yeah. Trust me, it's enough these days. Yeah. No, they're all rusted and old, but, weight's weight, all does the same job. And actually, PCP hooked us up the other day with some of the FlexiBand stuff. And that's actually been great. You can get.
Well, that's the thing. I was talking to Luke the other day actually, and Luke is massive into his fitness, and he's saying that basically like everything on the market in regards to getting weights and equipment into the house is all basically sold out for months. The fact is that when you found all that stuff, like definitely like that's incredibly lucky because you're not even able to really buy it at the time being. I want to get into how it's impacting the game right now specifically. We've seen with rugby league, which is incredibly struggling significantly. You've seen with the AFL how there's been teams that have been bought out. How is it impacting the game of sevens? Because it's a little bit different in the fact that these aren't teams. These aren't like, say, the West Tigers or Gold Coast Titans. These are nations, but they're team. Like how does this impact the game in regards to say financially and also in regards to just the game itself and how it's going?
Yeah, I think for me, super unqualified to speak on anything financial in that regard. I read as much as you guys do in the media, and Rugby Australia is struggling for cash. And as far as sevens goes, we're probably one of the ones that's going to hurt a little bit more than the other games, unfortunately. And I know the US have filed for bankruptcy as well. So I think, look, everyone's going through a tough time at the moment, and I know that we can dig ourselves out of it. And I know the fact that sevens is an Olympic sport, there's going to be a huge emphasis on that and getting a team there. I don't know who that team will be or how they're going to get everyone there.
Just about getting there.
But there will be a team for Australia represented at the Olympics. It's about who they can keep. I mean, there's going to be player movement, guys that have already signed contracts for post-Olympic stuff. I don't know how that will work. Coaches off contract, different things like that are going to significantly impact the game.
What's the impact on players' training? I'm just wondering, yourself, obviously you're keeping up with your fitness, doing those things, but obviously the factor of isolation, and obviously you probably still speak to teammates. How are they coming into effect, and how are you making sure that it's not impacting the way that you do train physically?
I think as far as it goes, like, part of being part of a team, the best thing of it is being around your mates, playing footy, building up sweat, working hard together.
Yeah.
So for that, you just can't replicate it. And it's a fact of what we're living in right now. But aside from that, you can do everything physically that you would do on a field, you can replicate to some extent. The skills might not be as good, but you certainly can get out there and pass the ball with one other mate.
I just want to emphasise on what you just said in regards to Sense Rugby. We'll get to Sense Rugby a little bit later on and we'll discuss that. However, I feel like that's really encouraging, the disabled children to be active in the community and to have that friendship and to have that mateship and be able to do it together with people who are in the same situation. And I feel like that's exactly what you're saying in regards to this. Like, it is a social out where you're like, it's just it's something that is so necessary. It's something that is so necessary for mental health.
Yeah, 100%. It's community. It's who you're around day in, day out, and knowing that they've got your back and you've got theirs. And people find that in different ways. And for me, rugby was mine. So I'll be forever grateful for that. And there's other people that they might be runners or they do bike riding or anything like that. There's just that, it's that thing that's tying different people from different areas together. And I think it's beautiful, regardless of what that activity is. But for me, it was rugby. And I'm hoping to keep involved with that as long as I can.
Just quickly on that, you're still only 30, man. I don't know when you say you obviously you've had 10 years in the game, or you had longer in the game, but 10 years specifically in sevens since your debut in Edinburgh. Yeah, it was Edinburgh, right?
No, I was London.
Oh,
So
London.
was the first
Okay.
tournament, yeah.
You've still got a few years left in you, man. Like you've still got. I'd say. Like obviously, I don't know your body. Your body knows your body. You know what I mean? But like, I think how long do you feel like you've still got left for yourself physically in the game?
It's hard to say. Like you can't experience. I mean, you can't go off other people's experiences. I guess like you look at guys like Wallenmeyer, or even DJ Forbes. You know, they played until they were 32. I think Wallenmeyer might have been 35 or 40. Who knows? But those guys, you know, they did it, and they did it to the best of their ability. There's more factors for me than just my body. I think probably another 3 or 4 years I could go and play a decent level of footy. But for me, I've got a 2-year-old girl, and I've got my wife, and I've got my house down in Bulli, and you know, I enjoy being at home. And for sevens as a sport, you know, you're away
all the time
so often. Like, it's 3 or 4 weeks, and you're away for 2 or 3 weeks, and you're going through that constantly, pretty much throughout the year. So that does take a toll, not only physically but mentally as well. So you know, I want to do things outside of rugby in Sense Rugby, and working in the community down here as well. So for me, it'll be pretty much. I'll try my best to get to the next Olympics, but who knows? We'll see what happens.
That's the main thing. The main thing is that, you know, you've still got that passion, but you've got passions outside of the sport, and that's what a lot of guys in rugby or just in sport in general, they struggle for that after. They struggle for there's a massive mental health issue in regards to players. You know, they focus on being the best player they can be, and then they forget about the after, or they don't plan for the after. And it seems like you've obviously got your after planned, which is obviously, you know, it's an incredible positive to know that you know what you want to do after this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've been pretty lucky within the sevens program that we've always had good career advisors. So for as long as I've been in the program, we've always had a good group of representatives that sort of led the boys on the right track. So there's a lot of guys studying, a lot of guys that have finished their apprenticeships, stuff like that. So I think we're pretty fortunate in that way that people will go on to things outside of rugby once they're done. But I think right now in the situation we're in, and not knowing whether or not we'll go back to playing rugby or whether we'll have a contract when we go back, what's been an interesting thing for me is now that I'm not doing anything else. So I've been able to focus my time full time on Sense Rugby and the things that I've got outside of rugby. So it's been a little bit of a preview as to what is coming. And I've certainly had some ups and downs in this time. So I'm going to have to manage that. And that's why I'm making sure that I am doing my training and the stuff that I know does make me happy.
Yeah, for the career stuff, when I was at West as a strength coach, they really hammered that in the juniors. Like, there were guests, I reckon every 2 to 3 weeks, there was ex-players or current players. Benji came down, Chris Lawrence, a lot of the older guys, and really hammered home
life
education and what you're going to do after footy. They always talked about, all the time about if you get an injury, a really bad injury, you need to do something else. And while you're playing, you need to study or have a business or have a trade. They really push that. So it's good to know across all these footy codes, they're really pushing these guys to get educated and have other stuff. Because they did give examples of players that had done quite well, $500,000 a year or more. And then after 30, they were working labor jobs, and it was very taxing on the body. And they said they should have been in a better financial or life place instead of having to work so hard again when they've already
just on that, like obviously in regards to the mental health aspect, because I'm a massive advocate for mental health. I've had my own issues before, and everyone has their own mental health difficulties, and I really think it's a massive thing that they've really focused on it in recent years, whether it be just in general life or in regards to sport, but sport in regards to, you know, the career after you finish, because obviously players end up on average finishing around their mid-30s whether it be rugby league or AFL or sevens or NFL goes to 40, but it's the mental health aspect is just such a key pivotal role that people previously, I feel, undervalued. They undervalued the meaning of the mental health aspect, but now people are starting to realise, like, yeah, we need to really focus on what we're going to do after this because it's not forever.
Yeah, absolutely. For the mental health thing, I think it's not only beneficial for the stuff outside of rugby and after rugby, but it's probably the biggest part of the game within rugby. And a lot of the times it's talked about, but it's not actually. I don't think it's actually driven home, and people want to, they want to help but don't know how. So it's something that I think we all are learning about, and going forward, it's just going to get better and better.
Jesse, the fact that we're touching on life after rugby sevens for you, I want to know, and you've touched base on the Sense Rugby and the things outside of rugby. Do you think your focus is, as Blaze said, and as I understand, the game is spending a lot of time away from family? Do you think you'll focus on getting that time back with family, or do you think it'll be more helping others with what you're doing with the Sense Rugby, in your opinion?
Yeah, for me, it's not, I guess you can't actually ever get that time back. For me, the last couple of weeks have been great because I consider myself a pretty good dad. I like being a dad, and I have a really good relationship with my daughter. But I feel like the last couple of weeks, because I've been home and just been able to, hang out with her and play with her and paint and draw and whatever she wants to do, like that bond has just grown so much stronger, and it's been great. I mean, it's been a terrible circumstance outside of.
You've always got to look for the positives in the negatives, though, you know what I mean?
It's been huge. Yeah, 100%. So for me, that's that will always be a huge part of my life, but going forward, Sense Rugby for me is, I think that's what's going to keep me attached to the game of rugby, and just being able to bring those kids through and get them integrated into the rugby clubs and part of that community, and just building stronger bonds for everyone there, and even creating awareness for kids with disabilities, and just helping them to interact day to day in clubs and
that's awesome, man. I honestly, we'll get to specifically Sense Rugby a little bit later on in the show, because that's something that I really want to focus on, because I've seen, obviously, I've personally known you for about 3 years now. I don't know if you probably wouldn't remember, but you were actually one of my first ever interviews on the channel in Oceania, the Oceania Sevens tournament. I've kept up to, on track with what you're doing outside of the game as well, which I'm really looking forward to talk. But I really want to also ask you about, obviously you've been in the game for 10 years. Sevens is not Super Rugby. Sevens is not NRL. It's not a massive. It's not one of the big time sports, but it's massively grown from where you were to where it is now. How has it been as a player's perspective, seeing that growth?
I think. I suppose as far as like viewership goes and fans and people tuning in, I'm not sure how it's grown on that aspect, but as far as being a player, the competition it just 100%. Grows and grows every year. People are getting faster, stronger, more skillful. Like I was looking back on a tournament. I think it was 2011 or something in maybe Vegas. I was looking at it and going, wow, like it actually looks like slow-mo. It looks like slow-mo compared to the games now. So I think as far as the quality of player goes, you obviously had your freaks back then like Serevi and William Ryder and a few other guys. Like it's just such a better product now, and I hope it's
100%. Well, it's 100% going to go into bigger and better things. Like you can see the difference in the tournament every single year. Like you were saying, it was quite slow back then, and a lot more. I just don't think it just hadn't evolutionized really yet. That's why I feel like Kenya was so good back then. Kenya was able to break that mold of pace, and then I feel like they kind of initiated the new style of game where you need to have pace along with the brutality of it, and that's why I feel like Kenya's also gone back a little bit, because everyone's adjusted to that and they've realised that is the way to go. What I was more so referring to as well is that, like, I've seen personally from a fan's perspective, and I know you said that you only can see as a player like how the competition has grown, but from 2010 to 2020, it's just been, it has been enormous growth. You've seen people in the USA actually starting to care about it. You've seen South Africa really blow up. You've seen Fiji obviously come onto the scene. Like, it really has grown from a fan's perspective as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, those tournaments, I suppose you'd turn up to London, Hong Kong, and there's probably one other that would be sellouts.
Maybe like
Cape
Town or something?
rafters. But aside from that, not back then, because we had Port Elizabeth and it was held at Nelson Mandela Stadium, and it was a good tournament, but nothing compared to what it is now. Like, pretty much every leg of the tournament is close to a sellout, and it's amazing to see, and I think it's just such a good product that when it's in your country or in your city, like, you're silly not to.
Exactly. What stadium do you prefer in Sydney? Did you prefer the old Spotless, or do you prefer the one we went to today? Not today, sorry. Obviously not today. This year in Bankwest.
Bankwest was good. I did like Allianz, but I suppose I'm a little bit biased because we did have a win there. So
of course,
memories for me. I'll be interested to see what the new one looks like. But Bankwest was good as far as a spectator and as a player on the field.
Did I hear new one? Oh, the new Allianz. I thought you were referring to. I thought you were about to say like they've already announced a new stadium. I'm like, okay, I'm excited.
Nah.
The stadium that didn't need to get rebuilt, Blaze. That one. It's already 80,000.
Jesse, what teams have impressed you the most over the last 10 years in their rebuild, like in their growth?
I think it's hard to go past the US. I specifically remember sitting in the stands watching the US play in my very first tournament, and I think they might have been versing France, who weren't that great at the time either, and France probably put 40, 50 points on them.
Thinking about that now, it's just like...
I remember sitting next to Snoz. Yeah, it's madness. And I remember sitting next to Snoz, and he was like, "Oh, you wait, mate. Give them probably 5 to 10 years, and they'll be top of the table." And sure enough, it became an Olympic sport, and it's just, they've just blown up. I mean, they've just got a good mix of, they got guys like Danny Barrett and Pinkelman who are just good, strong ball runners. They've got a couple of good playmakers in Madison and Scott Perry and then Carlin as well, who are just amazing finishers.
From a player perspective, you mentioned what I was going to mention about it being so big and the fact that it's an Olympic sport, and you're talking about player and spectator perspective. How, as a player, do you think it affects you knowing, oh, wow, now we're being watched as a physical Olympic sport by the world, not just by our country or the country we're versing? It's become such a global sport.
I think for me, I'm not sure how it affects players differently, but for me, crowd or the viewership or whatever has never really been a factor. I try to block it out a lot of the time. Most of the time I'm just focused on what I'm doing that it's not too much of an issue for me. It doesn't make me nervous or anything like that. But to know that, people are actually starting to care about this game and it's getting exposure from outside of rugby circles, it's amazing to see for me, because it is something that will be part of me forever. I've been part of the growth in Australia of sevens, and for me, I'll always take an interest in it. Hopefully I can be a part of it for a little bit longer.
Does anyone get nightmares about Carlin Island?
I do, and I don't even play. And I get nightmares about it.
Yeah, as long as he hasn't got space around me, then I'm okay with it. But I know him and Trey have a little bit of banter online.
Just on that as well, like what amazes me about the sevens game, and you've just said, like, as long as he doesn't have the space around you. However, like, obviously, Perry Baker and Carlin Isles, they can kind of just, because they're so fast, they can just find that space. How do you? I just don't get, like, this is why I never played sevens, because I just don't have the mind for it. I don't get how you can adjust to make sure that there is not that gap where they can find, especially with only 7 players on the field.
Yeah, well, I guess it's the same way you sort of defend against someone like Mozza Longbottom. Like, elusive. You never really actually defend the man. You're defending the space around him. So you're actually using 2 people to defend that man. So we try really hard to just keep Carlin on the outside, keeping him down the wing and defend his outside shoulder. So we're actually hoping that he runs into us rather than...
Don't watch this.
Yeah, Carlin, turn off now.
That's all right. Yeah. They all know.
Well, that's the thing as well. Like, everyone knows... with the game plan, like it's hard to adjust and create a game plan where the other team doesn't know, because obviously they know what their weaknesses are. You know what their weaknesses are. Surely, kind of both would come together where they understand what you're probably going to do to get that, and then, like, how do you adjust for that?
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of the game. I mean, you look at someone like the Fijians, and they will never change how they play. You know, they're gonna do what they do because they're bloody good at it. But if you look at someone like the Kiwis, or especially the Saffers, they're super smart footballers and will change
they adapt to how,
the game at different times within a game. They can adapt to different teams.
Do a lot of video analysis.
Yes, a lot of video analysis. We probably do maybe 4 or 5 sessions a week.
Wow.
Upwards of an hour. So Walshy is huge on, you know, we know every player we're playing against, if they step off their left foot and palm with their right arm, or have a bad pass left to right. So super detail orientated, and I think, you know, we'll always know each player's strengths and weaknesses when we're playing. You know, you can know them, but you still got to.
When there's a new player that comes in, like a fresh player that comes in, like a young boy, someone who's quite unknown, do you guys know them? Like, have you guys seen footage of them before they come in, or do you kind of have to just go off? What do you do in that regards? Like with a new, fresh, up and coming player in the system, how you've never actually seen them play on the World Series level?
Yeah, I think Samoa's probably the best example for me of that, because we've played them. For some reason, we play them every single tournament, so we know them quite well. But leading into the Oceania Olympic qualifier, we knew what their side was likely to be, and we knew that they'd have a few guys that they were looking at bringing in. So for us, we actually went on, you know, deep dives of YouTube to find highlights and
marketplace.
Especially with Samoa, though, that'd be very difficult. Like, that'd be very difficult going on YouTube to find. Like you guys know, and I know Lou's gonna love this because I always mention that I'm in Fiji right now. The fact of the matter is that I'm very well aware of how difficult it is to find this kind of stuff. So you would have had to go really deep to find this kind of footage.
Yeah, it's hard. Like, we were looking back at one of the fellas that was coming in. He was a sprinter in Samoa, but he'd played like a Pacific Games.
Oh, like a Coca-Cola Games or something like that,
He played in one of those. So we pulled up his footage from there so we could get a little bit of a look at what sort of player he was. You know, it's not great footage, and it's not necessarily how he plays now, but it gives you some sort of an idea as to what his attributes actually are.
They played themselves, haven't they? Uploading it on the, you know, in the dark web.
The dark web. Yeah. Look, Jesse, I want to let's move off. Let's move off other teams for a second, and let's get specifically talking about Australia, because, you know, this is we're all Australian here. We all want the best for Australia. What do you currently think of where Australia's at?
As far as a code,
as far as how our sevens team is currently.
I think if we were to go off the last 2 tournaments, we're in a really good space. I think everything, you know, it's unfortunate for us that the Olympics will move back, because I think that we're starting to have a little bit of a snowball effect. We'd had a little, that was really leading towards some wins, hopefully. But I think we've had that consistency in our S&C, in the players there, training week to week, and then also our coaching. So I think, you know, if you want to build consistent performances, you need to have a consistent platform, and I think that's where we're starting to get to. So hopefully we can keep that momentum moving forward, and when those tournaments in September do come, if they come, we'll be ready to go and ready to roll.
What I find with our team is that I think that we are actually, we can genuinely beat literally anyone, and I don't think that every team can be like that. Everyone says, oh yeah, anyone can beat anyone on their day. I disagree. I don't think anyone can beat anyone on their day in regards to specific teams. However, I feel like Australia, we definitely can. For some reason, we can't seem to beat Fiji. They just always seem to do it to us. But, you know, we can beat them, and we can beat anyone. But for some reason, that consistency just isn't there, or we play well the entire game, and then something in the last few seconds of the game will just kind of bring all that hard work undone. Is this how you feel?
Yeah, it has been. that's been the story for a long time now, unfortunately. And I think when you look at the teams that we lose against, they're teams that are very well drilled, but they always have some sort of game breaker. They'll have, for example, the US who we were just talking about, they've got a Carlin Isles or a Perry Baker who's
or a
got
Cecil
electric
Africa
speed,
in
or
South Africa.
the Fijians who, yeah, exactly right. Or Fiji who will throw some flick pass that manages to hit hands. But they all can go the length, which I don't think we were able to do for a long time. Whereas now we've got guys like, Mozza and Trey, if he keeps going the way he is, like, those are guys that are genuine game breakers, paired up with guys like Nick Maloof and Louis, who are just steady hands that, get the job done. I think the more we can build those guys playing together, and the more they build their connections.
We've got a lot of players like that who just can, in any random game, just pick it up. And you say Moz quite a bit. We all know that Moz is incredibly elusive, and when he's on, he's on. The game I'm more referring to is against New Zealand. Against New Zealand I think it was in New Zealand actually. We had that game won. In my opinion. And then I think we both know kind of what happened. That's the only thing that I feel like is wrong with that team. Otherwise, I think we could win our first series. Like we've never won the World Series, right?
Not
in this
I
setting.
think we may have back 20 years ago, but no, not in the professional era.
Yeah, I think we have the quality to. I think we have the team to. But I just, like I said, like that last minute of that game really. It's frustrating, but it's like we know that we're on the right path. Australia has been a bit of a lower, like a 4th, 5th range team for quite a few years, and now I feel like we're starting to move up towards that 3rd area. Obviously, South Africa and Fiji and New Zealand, so we're still probably in that 4th category. But I feel like we're definitely getting closer to that level.
Yeah, for sure. We've got that consistency now, and I think we're just building, week in, week out, and doing everything we can on the field. And I don't know if there's a quick fix to what you're saying in regards to, I suppose, those game breaker moments, but I know that the boys are working hard towards that, and hopefully, come the Olympics, whenever that may be, we'll end up with a gold medal there.
How do they scout you guys for sevens? Do they find you from Union or Rugby League? Because Rugby League's had a really good reception to the Nines preseason tournament. I think that's come a long way. That these shorter, faster, more energetic types of footy are very entertaining. But in terms of how are they scouting you, are they getting you from Rugby Union? What age are they kind of scouting and go, hey, you should play sevens now?
Yeah, so it's been a changing process over the years. So when I first started, when I was in the Brumbies Academy, they'd basically just look at all the fringe Super Rugby players and go and just pick from there. And you'd literally fly in to the AIS. You'd have a week camp down there. You'd do all your testing, all your training, and then you'd fly out, play 2 tournaments, come home, and that was it. You wouldn't see the boys until the next tournament. These days, they've got the Australian titles. They've got a handful of really, really quality sevens tournaments, like Kiama, like Darwin. Central Coast used to be one of them, and that's where they're looking at guys, as well as the schoolboy stuff as well. So most guys are still coming from Rugby Union, but I think as time goes on, you'll see more guys filter in from Rugby League as well. Moz is one of those guys who was playing Rugby League, had a good tournament, just off the back of playing a little bit of sevens, and then came into the program.
Yeah, like a Westfields or a Keebra Park kind of.
Do you think sevens could ever be a part of a school program specifically on the same level of Rugby Union, like as the full 15s, basically?
Mate, to be honest, so I didn't know what sevens was until Mick O'Connor called me and said, "Do you want to come?"
That's
play?
what most people are like, bro. That's what most people are like.
But
most people don't understand what sevens really is.
Yeah, 100%. So I guess for me, if sevens was a sport at school, mate, that would have been my top of the pick. like it's an awesome game. Like I loved playing touch, OzTag, rugby league, AFL, anything I could get. Get a couple of days off school for basically. But sevens would have just been awesome. Like I would have loved doing that. So I guess there's other people like me, so I assume it would probably work.
Yeah, like because surfing's a sport for coastal schools, so I don't see why sevens could be no reason for sevens to not be a part of like a sporting school or a development program. It is an Olympic sport, so.
Yeah, 100%, and hopefully that this trial period of being in the Olympics, they re-elect to have it in as a full-time sport, because I think the Olympics is still the biggest sporting stage in the world, and people are going to be drawn to that. Regardless of what the sport is, people will watch it and they will turn up and they will want to play it.
Funny that you mentioned that in schools there may be people like you, because that leads into the question that I was going to ask you, and it might be a tough one, but do you think that Australia itself and the team is in safe hands looking for the future? And what I mean by that is, do you see players that remind you of a younger version of yourself? Obviously, we're seeing good players being blood through the tournaments, but do you see players that we are completely safe with that remind you of you, that are playing sevens to your ability?
Yeah, look, I think there's guys coming through that are much better than I am. I mean, I grew up playing league and 15s. So for me, sevens was a little bit of a leap coming into it. There's guys now playing sevens from the age of, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. If we foster those kids from a young age and bring them through the ranks and keep them interested in sevens with that carrot of having the Olympics, I think we are in safe hands. I think it's a great game for Australians. I think it's, we are struggling for numbers in country towns, but there's no reason you can't put a sevens team together if you can't get a 15s done. So for me, I think it's a good fit.
Yeah, you're right, as there's obviously only 7 people on the field at once. It gives people or towns that have a lower population a real chance to travel and maybe move outside of their town when they didn't have opportunities before.
Yeah, definitely. And you don't have to play week in, week out to be part of a sevens team. You can set up tournaments every 2 or 3 weeks, because reality is, if you are going to play in those country tournaments, you're probably driving 4 or 5 hours to get to your next town just to have a tournament. So if you can bring all the teams to one place, have a big tournament, and then head your separate ways, you can still get your fix of rugby. You can still train for it, and everyone keeps happy.
Just on that as well, I want to ask about the recovery process between tournaments. Obviously, you've just the way that this is set up is completely different to how regular tournaments are set up. You have your, say, for example, New Zealand on the Saturday, Sunday, and then you have a week break, and then you have Sydney on the Saturday, Sunday, and then you have a month break, and then you go do it again, but like, say, Los Angeles and Vancouver. How does your body adjust to this process, and do you think that's an advantage on kids coming through the game to know that they don't have to play every single week?
Yeah, I think so. For me, like playing 15s week in, week out, you have your recovery session on the Monday, and then you're basically tapering into your next games. With sevens, it's like when you come home, it's always a little mini preseason. So you might have 3 or 4 days off, and then you'll come back in, do your recovery stuff, and then start ramping things up again. So yeah, I think that is something that you could sell to people potentially. People that don't want that heavy contact week in, week out, you're definitely not getting as much.
But in regards to not getting it week in, week out, you're also getting it more on a frequent basis in that short period of time on the weekend of that tournament.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it depends how many games you're going to play within that tournament. For guys that are playing 14 minutes, you end up playing maybe one full game of 15s throughout a whole tournament. Obviously, that is broken up and at a much higher intensity. But yeah, you are still getting that amount of time-ish.
Yeah, because for your sport, it's kind of in between a weekly team sport such as rugby league, rugby union, soccer, and an event sport such as boxing or UFC. So you're kind of in between that. So like you said before, the tapering during the season for a traditional rugby league, rugby union, over 60, 70% of the week is actually spent recovering during the week, during the season, if people aren't aware. So it's a lot of time actually just foam rolling, pull, active recovery, physio. It's very minimal training. For you, do you find it very demanding on your sporting days, on your big event days where you might have multiple games or back-to-back and stuff like that? What type of recovery happens between games, or what do they tell you to do? I find like that can be the hardest. Yeah, that could be the hardest. Your most demanding day is that one big day where you have to back up. So if you're playing in the morning, how do you kind of prepare for the evening game where you're really sore, you're done from the first game? Yeah.
Great question. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is something we think a lot about because it is the hardest part of sevens. I remember when I first started playing, it wasn't too bad. You'd sort of shake off that last game, get moving a little bit, and then you'd be ready to go. But as I have got older and the competition has been stronger, you do notice the bumps and bruises a little bit more. So for us, it'd look like you get off the field, you go do your interview with Blaze, and then you
boys, BKRsport.
Go into your recovery. So you do your ice bars or your bike, your stretching, your passive flush of your legs. There might be some massage within that, and then you might try and get a little sleep in before your next game. And that's sort of the easy part of it. It's more the warming back up and getting back into the game. So most guys have their own little routine that they go through. I'll do like a little yoga flow, and then I'll go into a bit of a team focus, stretching, throwing the ball around, stuff in the change rooms, and then we'll roll out to our training to the warm up. But it's hard. What
about Sydney? It was 52 degrees on the field then. That would have obviously been I was there in the stadium. I felt the 52 degrees. I could easily, just go up and grab a drink, or go into the media room where it was air conditioning. You guys obviously have to go out there and play. If you don't go out there and play, there's no point being there. So how does that on the body as well?
Well, yeah, it was tough, but I think for us, we looked at it as that's our advantage. A lot of teams are coming from colder climates, so for
Scotland.
us, it was a little bit of a win. But outside of that, there's guys, they'll have guys that are coming off the field, getting ice vests straight on, getting that core temperature down so that the heart rate can come down and you have a little bit of relaxed time before you're going into that second half. So there are ways that you can sort of try to help limit that fatigue, but it is hard when it's that hot.
For the food, I'm guessing you have your big carbohydrate meal maybe a few hours before your first game, but in between games, are they giving you like a carbohydrate gel or sugar, or what are they kind of giving you? Or are they trying to fit as much food as you can possibly handle? Or are they doing a Powerade? Do you do a Powerade swish in your mouth and then spit it out, which has been done by a lot of our teams lately?
Is this between games or?
Yeah. Or between halves games, yeah.
So between halves, we do a lot of. So we'll always have Gatorade come on. If you guys have coconut water and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But mostly just trying to get those sugars in so we're not cramping. I know guys have been using pickle juice, which is quite effective for cramping. In the food halls outside of the games, basically you can have whatever you want, and it's up to you. If you feel like you can play with a bit of food in your stomach, then those guys will probably load up and get as much as they can in.
How do you stop fatigue? Obviously, sevens is such an exhausting sport. It's so fast paced. It's full of energy, and playing multiple games throughout the day during those tournaments. How do you stop the fatigue from settling in?
Yeah, it's really, for us, our biggest focuses are just really trying to nail in on our recovery processes, making sure that we have a roll, have a stretch, get in the ice bars, have a little sleep if we can. It's really, you're never going to get rid of it. You can just sort of limit it a little bit. Anything we can sort of do to help limit it. Even, I guess, Walshy might make calls if the first two games have gone really well and some of the guys have had, huge amounts of minutes, then he might rest them for that last one because it's not as important for us to win that game.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, now look, I want to jump into Sense Rugby. I think we've spoken quite a bit about the recovery process of the game, how Australia's doing, and how the sevens game has grown. But I really want to focus now on Sense Rugby. And obviously, this is something you're very passionate about. For the viewers out there who may not be aware of what Sense Rugby is, could you please give us a brief explanation of exactly what it is?
So I think the simplest explanation of it is we're a rugby-themed occupational therapy group for kids with special needs. So we work with kids with ADHD, sensory processing disorder, Down syndrome, anything you can think of that might limit kids from being part of a regular sporting group. Those are the kids that we have in.
Fantastic. So do you feel like you said in comparison to, say, regular rugby, is there any way that, some of these children could still, despite their disability, still make it through this program, still, be encouraged to make it into, say, regular rugby?
Yeah, 100%. That's I suppose that's our end goal for all our groups, is to hopefully integrate those kids into a club that is, accepting of their limitations and aware of it and happy to welcome them into the community. So we'll basically have the building blocks for those kids, and we'll try and work. They'll work with their OT to, see what it is that actually helps facilitate them to be part of a team. And then hopefully once they've come through Sense Rugby, they can then go into a regular club.
I guess the main thing, is keeping them, making them aware that they aren't thought of differently, I guess, because, I feel like a disabled would really struggle with that, the fact of inclusiveness. And I feel like with your program, it is a really inclusive program that gets the disabled children to be able to go out and be a part of the community and then feel the confidence to get involved elsewhere as well.
Well, that's it. It is a bit of a snowball effect, and we do see that. So for us, it's hugely based around building their confidence, making them feel part of the team, that camaraderie of team sport, and hopefully making some friends. I think an awesome little byproduct of what we've been doing is the kids are making friends, and they are actually going to each other's houses, and the parents are hanging out, and they have their own little community. And for us, that's almost even better than the actual stuff they're doing on the rugby field, because for us, it's about making sure those kids are happy and leading a life that they want to live.
I spoke in our first podcast about how sport affecting society relates to teamwork, and you said that you're teaching teamwork-based skills, which you're doing a lot of in Sense Rugby. How big of a loss with everything going on do you think it is that the kids aren't learning? How much of an impact is it that they can't learn that team that you're teaching them, the teamwork you're teaching them?
Yeah, it's been really hard, and we've had a few emails and Facebook messages and stuff like that from parents asking if we can put together something online.
Ask that next,
we're looking at building a little program, and it won't be anything serious, but just something to keep the kids together and keep them feeling like they're connected to Sense Rugby and part of something bigger. So we're looking at just doing a few little live passing drills, and a little bit of push-ups and sit-ups and just stuff that's going to keep them engaged with Sense Rugby and get them their fix of being part of that team.
I think what's interesting is that you are a player, but you also understand what allied health professionals do behind the scenes. As you know, like all your physios, your therapists, your sports psychologists, and now occupational therapists for what you do for Sense Rugby. What does it feel like being on the other side of it, not being a player or someone involved, or involved in the back end, kind of the helping and the assistance role in rugby rather than being a player? What's the main differences between being a player and being a health professional?
I think for me, it's just a really grounding activity for me to do. It's really nice. Like I'm so happy that we were able to create something like this, because I didn't realize I had a passion for working with kids and until I actually met my wife and started doing it. So I think working with these kids has just brought so much to my life that they'll never understand. But being able to help them play rugby and enjoy something that I've enjoyed my whole life, it's been really special. So to be able to be in that back end and be part of just being almost like a helper or coach of rugby has actually helped my rugby in the way that reminds me of
Well,
why
I was gonna ask
Yeah,
that
like
as well. Actually, I was gonna ask him that because I was gonna ask what inspired you originally to create this, because obviously I'm aware that your wife Carly, am I right? Carly,
Yeah,
Carly, yeah.
Carly,
I'm aware she was an occupational therapist previously, and you obviously have that rugby professional background, so you kind of mix the two together. What inspired you two to specifically create what you've created?
Yeah, it was by chance a little bit. Carly she had I think he might have been 10 or 11 years old. She was treating him as a client, and he was a big boy, quite robust, strong kid. And she came home and was like, "Oh, Jess, this kid, he needs a lot of proprioception. He needs a lot of physical input. He needs some feedback. His parents have said it's okay. Do you want to come in and do some work with him?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I can get some tackle bags and hit shields and stuff like that, and we can see what we can do." And went into her clinic at the time and did some rugby drills with him, and he loved it. The parents were like, "It's the first time we've seen him light up like that in ages." So I guess from there it was just like, okay, how do we make this work?
In that moment, did you expect it to take off to what it is now? Obviously, look, I think that Sense Rugby, I don't think you've just brought it to the nation of Australia. I reckon there's countries out there that have watched videos that you've put online. I've watched clips of it myself and things like that. And I think overseas it's inspired a lot of countries to run similar or even they may call it Sense Rugby, who know, programs like that. Is that what you expected out of this, or was it something, a sort of a hobby that was helping on the side?
Nah, from the start, that was the thing. Like we were purely just doing it because it was a little bit of fun, and it let me and Carly work together, which we really enjoyed. So from the very start, no, it wasn't that. But once we realised the potential it could have and the results we were getting from the kids, it was like, okay, all right, how do we take this to the next level? How do we get this out to more kids, more parents, and more clubs? So for us, it then began like not so much running the classes, but actually facilitating other people to do it. So now we work with 40 or maybe 45 different OT clinics across Australia and New Zealand. So, we're constantly keeping up to date with them, updating their programs and the skills they're doing and trying to come up with some really cool equipment for them to work with. So that's more our role now than actually running the groups. But I definitely want to go back to running the groups because it's way more
What
fun.
are your ultimate goals for Sense Rugby? Like, what is your actual long-term goals with how far you want to grow Sense Rugby?
Good question. I guess we've never really had a clear set goal in mind. For us, it's more just been about having that organic growth, and we haven't really been pushing it or anything like that, and we don't advertise it too hard, and we really just want the right people involved, and we want to make the program as good as it possibly can be. So getting the best OTs to work with us and being able to pick their brains about different ways they solve problems or different ways they'd use the equipment or different drills that they can come up with. It just keeps adding to our program. And the more people that get involved, the more people that want to get involved. So I haven't got a number on it, and I'd love to see it go worldwide, but who knows? I'm just happy with.
I personally think it's best that you don't put a number on it because you can do absolutely everything with what this is.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, mate. Like, I like that it grows organically, and I like that the fact that we haven't put any goals on it. I think it feels a little bit more authentic to me because we're doing it for the right reasons.
Rather than a financial business strategy.
But it's not about a goal or a target or anything like that. So for me, if I can put a number on it and say, I want 1,000 kids doing Sense Rugby and then integrating into club rugby, that would be a goal that I'd be keen to hit, sort of thing.
I feel like male coaches and males that are involved in sport can be some of the most empowering or most, I would say, most admired for young men in terms of their influence on them as a kid. Do you have a lot of young guys coming through saying, I need that kind of role model in my life, or I need something to do physically? That, like you say, you work with kids with disabilities, like they might need that role model or someone with them even more than usual just because of the stuff they go through for being somewhat different. Do you feel like you help a lot in that regards, the impact that they have someone there as a role model, like a male influence?
Yeah, for sure. We work with a lot of kids that do come from separated families, and it's really sad, but a lot of the mums will say that we're just happy that they have got a male role model, and it's not me, because I'm not running groups anymore. It's our we got a guy, Luke Walsh, or Jake, who runs our Melbourne group. Yeah. Like, it's those guys there, they're fit, athletic guys who are great occupational therapists, who are, really, manly men, but really care for these kids. And I think it sort of bucks the stereotype a little bit, which is something that I love seeing, because, they're these big burly footy guys, and, they're talking to these kids like they're playing with them. They're being really, affectionate towards these kids, and making sure that, those kids are looked after. And I think that's really important, that those kids see that, these guys, they can be, you can be a big, strong man, but also, have emotions and be loving and stuff like that.
We've been going about an hour now, so I think we should start to wrap up. But I just want to say, Jesse, like it's really refreshing seeing a genuine, down-to-earth guy like yourself in sports that is willing to help so much in the community as well, and is really passionate about working in the community as well, not just kind of feeling like he has to do stuff like this. You really want to do stuff like this, and it's really good to see someone like yourself really actively getting involved.
Oh, yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. And it's been really good to chat with you guys. And actually, it's been really helpful, because it's nice to be able to think about these things, and some of the questions you've asked me, I might not have had good answers for, but it is going to prompt me to think about that stuff. So thanks for having me on.
You definitely challenge the stereotype of that footy players aren't intellectuals or don't care for people outside the footy, or, they're all about just the fame and money and the prowess that comes with being footy. But you're doing a lot of stuff for community and people that don't usually have a big voice.
I think, I know that there's a lot of guys out there in rugby that are exactly like me and want these things to happen. Like, within my team, they're all good guys. And it's a shame that sometimes in the media it does get portrayed that, that they're not. And
they're not highlighting.
Yeah, they're just highlighting the barley trick. Like, it's because negative media sells, and it does suck. It does suck. But that's why podcasts like what we're doing right now in the Sheds it's good to have a person like Jesse on, where you can see what it actually is like outside of what the generic media will send, because this isn't generic media. This is a YouTube channel that we're just coming together, having a few laughs and talking about sport and how it relates, and getting Jesse on, I hope has shown the viewers out there that it's these guys, they are real people. Like, I know a lot of people don't see sports stars as real people. They're like, oh, they're on another level. It's just like, well, no, they're real people getting by doing these real life situations, and it's like I said, it's really awesome to see what you're doing, Jesse. So I'm going to leave all your social media links. Well, your social media links are in front of you, but I'm going to leave Sense Rugby in the middle as well, because I really want everyone to actively get behind Sense Rugby. Is Instagram, or have you got all Facebook, Twitter, social media?
Yeah, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. So you can catch us on all
everyone obviously go and follow them, and obviously massive thank you to Jesse Parahi for coming on here. It's been an absolute pleasure, mate. And you were the first guest, and also this is the first time we've gone on video.
How good.
So we're
beautiful.
It's been a great.
Don't want to scare the viewers.
Yeah, exactly. So, thank you to Jesse for coming on. Also, obviously, thank you to Hayden and Shirls for jumping on. Their social media links will be in the description below. Obviously, guys, if you do love your sport, this is the place to be. Jump down there, hit the subscribe button, and hit the little notification bell so get a notification every single time we upload. And that'll do us today, guys. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. See you.